This Week in Startups is brought to you by CacheFly is a pure-play CDN provider that makes CDN simple, effective, and secure. Deliver content faster than your competitors and get 10 terabytes free forever if you sign up at twist.cachefly.com. That's twist.cachefly.com. House of Macadamias is the next big health trend. Get 20% off your first purchase and a free bottle of cold-pressed macadamia oil at houseofmacadamias.com/twist by using code TWIST20. And Notion is now offering eligible startups up to 6 months free for their Plus plan, plus unlimited AI for that 6 months. Start saving your startup some money and apply for Notion for Startups today at notion.com/Jason.
Welcome, everybody, back to This Week in Startups. AI and crypto are basically the two why nows that we've experienced in the last 5 years. One of them perhaps fading here in the United States, and the other one soaring. With me to discuss it all on our weekly, or every other week, bi-weekly AI Crypto Roundtable. Sunny Sandeep Madra, the co-founder of Definitive Intelligence, and Vinny Lingham, the co-founder of Civic and Wait Room. Welcome back to the program, boys.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks for having us again.
Hey, Sunny.
Yeah.
All right. There has been a lot of discussion about the phases under which AI will be adopted. Ram Alawalia, the founder of Lumida Wealth Management, it's an alternative asset founded investment advisor. He tweeted following prediction on AI. 1, human leverage. 2, operating leverage. 3, management leverage. You guys agree with this? And did you see this tweet?
Yeah, I really like this breakdown because what it's sort of like inverse, and it builds on what we talked about in the last podcast, where we see the leverage in the engineers first, then in the operating class, and then finally in the management class. And I think instinctually when people think about it, they probably think it's the other way around, but I really like the way Ram laid it out here.
Vinny, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I know Ron. He's a good guy. He's very thoughtful about these things. He's very analytical as well. So, look, I think the big danger is if we try and overanalyze and sort of constrain what is happening to like trying to create these categories and layers of what's happening. Where, quite frankly, it's just the wild, wild west. Who knows? Like this thing can go in a million different directions. It can upend all the norms that management and company building and every other norm that we can think about. This is like true disruption on every scale. And Chamath said as much in the All In podcast last week, JKL, that you host. He's having to rethink everything, and it's a humbling experience.
Yeah, I look at this, and I think what we're seeing is smart people trying to build a mental model as to where this is going. Vinny, your point is well taken. And Chamath, a great example. He's one of the, I would say one of the great strategic thinkers that we know. And people are trying to build a mental model of what is happening right now and where this is going. However, the pace at which this is going and some of the dynamics, as you're saying, Vinny, are not typical. They're unique to this moment in time. They are, in fact, the black swans, perhaps. I look at this, and when I do my, hey, here's 3 phases, which everybody seems to like to use the 3-phase approach. I'm not sure why it's not 4 or 6.
McKinsey, it's a McKinsey 3. It was a consulting
we can put them in circles. I don't know. Odd number works better. You can charge more money per hour when you do this McKinsey thing. I think about augmentation, which he points out human leverage engineers 10xing, but I put augmentation for salespeople, SDRs, writers, everybody in between. And then automation, where you're kind of taking some humans out of the process. And then finally, after augmentation and this sort of automation is, replacement or deprecation. In other words, you just don't need certain functions anymore shortly after they're automated. So some people might be watching the automations, which we saw with AutoGPT, but maybe at a certain point, you're like, you know what? I can trust this thing. I don't need to have a human here. Just like we used to have humans as elevator operators, at some point we felt confident enough to just take the human out of the elevator. So what is your thought hearing those two things, Sunny, about where this is going?
Yeah, like I want to build on something that Vinny brought up last time. And I think, we had a good discussion on it. And I think it really, good on Vinny to bring it up. And a couple of days ago, Samuel had a good Twitter post. Nick, I just shared it in our chat, right? Which is actually a quote from Adam D'Angelo, who's, one of the kind of the smarter minds in Silicon Valley, right? Ex-CTO of Facebook. And it really aligns with sort of what Vinny is saying, what Vinny was saying last week, and just kind of building on that, which also aligns to that first point where we're seeing engineers who generally never felt this in technology. And I really like the way he kind of phrased it, is that, every week there's new releases. And then because of that, every day he has spent hours to learn what's changed, to also then, figure out, is what they're doing, does it even make any sense? This is really, really important, I think, in terms of that first bullet. So I wanted to spend just a bit more time on that again, because, last week we touched on it and it was, we talked about what's happening, but to hear, more people bringing that up is really important, because that's a framework that I think every person that's building right now that's close to the AI ecosystem, or even if you're not, you should be thinking about that.
Yeah. Is your idea and what you're executing on even valid anymore because of something that's been released? Are you seeing that firsthand, Vinny, yourself?
Yeah. So I don't think it's moving that quickly right now. I think we still have a little bit of, daylight between when that happens. Like when the machine becomes, self-aware, the singularity, then I think it becomes a little bit more, a bit more of a, like I said, a smaller gap between, the rate of change. So the rate of change will go up a lot more. Right now, it just feels fast for us. But if I look around, the big companies aren't freaking out. There's no huge M&A cycle right now in AI. They're not panicking just yet. Everyone's still trying to place their bets. No one's really making money out of it either. I mean, there are a couple of guys. That's I think the big catalyst for when things go parabolic, right? When startups form that start eating the big companies' lunches at a rate that they cannot digest or handle, that's going to be when we have the tipping point where everyone
revenue
goes,
destruction is
revenue
what you're
destruction.
referring to.
Revenue destruction and or transference, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'll use my company as an example because, right? So we are a video chat platform, a video conferencing platform. We're rolling out AI features. If people just start deciding to use us, and we haven't started charging it, but when we do, at a rate faster than Zoom or Hangouts with a higher rate of stickiness, and maybe we at a lower price, and people just move across, that's when these companies start to panic, right? And they go, oh, how do we compete with that? Well, it's AI driven. Well, what does that mean for us? Can we go and add AI? Well, no, because we have to worry about this and this and this existing customer and this revenue, and how do we charge for it? And the machines of these big companies are just very, very slow. The larger the company, the slower it is for them to make change. This is why startups always have an advantage when they're building. We can just cut to the core and say, all these features and legacy that they're busy supporting and customers are paying for it, we're not going to build that. We're not going to offer that. That doesn't make sense anymore because AI takes care of all these things.
That's
the disruption I think that's coming.
I think when you get to specific examples, it really opens people's eyes. In other words, there's Zoom out there. There is Otter. A lot of people got into video conferencing, maybe transcripts early. And now a new entrant with only, I don't know how many people have a wait room, but I'm assuming maybe a dozen people or something. A company with 1,200 people, now there's an offering with 12 people. And if you can charge it, you have a different cost basis than they do.
Yeah, exactly. Like for us, because we cut off video at about 10 now, we're busy changing it around. But like at 10, let's say there's 100 people on a call. Everything else is audio. We're only paying for 10 video streams. Whereas with Zoom, everyone has their cameras on, and they're busy feeding the video cost. I mean, the video cost they have to eat, or the customer's paying for it, right? So, just as an example, right? Our model is different, and that's not what makes us, I think, different necessarily. I think for us, we're focusing on the AI components because we've built out a feature roadmap that we're going to, in the next 60 days, probably rolling out 4 to 6 features, which they can't do in the same amount of time. It's just not possible. We're a team of less than 20 people. And so it's the feature. So right now I call it feature stuffing. Okay. Like you got to take products and services that have been built and you're going up against the incumbents. You have to stuff it with features way faster than anyone else. This is what Zuckerberg did with Facebook in the early days, by the way.
Product velocity.
Exactly. Product velocity. How many sprints do we have in the next 60 days, 90 days? How many features can we roll out? We've done the 2x2 matrix and we're like looking at all the quick wins, the low hanging fruit stuff that we can roll out quickly. So it's not so much about rethinking everything. And I get what Adam D'Angelo is saying, but I mean, when you're solving problems that already exist and you're just doing it in a better way, I think you can overthink things a bit too much and focus on focusing on the rate of change itself means that you're not going to be focusing on building product. And I always make, whether it's wrong or right, I'd rather focus on product right now than looking at all the things that change. Even though I agree that there could be some redundancies, I'd rather roll out 10 features and 2 become redundant than roll out 2 that are really well, because I think it's actually it's a feature race right now.
Listen, everybody, when it comes to the blocking and tackling of running your startup, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. CDNs, aka content delivery networks, are the place where startups can really overcomplicate things. You don't need custom authentications or custom codes. No. If you're a startup, you need to just check out CacheFly. It's a pure play CDN. And CDNs are literally all they do. So they're the best in the world at it. They've been doing it for over 2 decades. That's 20 years. CacheFly makes CDNs simple, effective, and secure. Let me say that one more time. Simple, secure, effective. Effective, secure, simple. Simple, effective, secure. You eventually are going to outgrow the smaller ones that are trying to give you too many discounts. You want the best of breed. So don't burn your startup credits using a CDN at one of those larger players. Let CacheFly handle it all for you. They will help you deliver your content faster than your competitors. You have to be fast if you want to compete, whether it's videos, your mobile app, games, content, SaaS. The faster you go with your delivery, the more people will use your product. So go check out CacheFly. And Twist listeners are going to get 10 terabytes free forever when you sign up at twist.cachefly.com. That's twist.cachefly.com. 10 terabytes are waiting for you for free. Stop what you're doing, pause the podcast, go to twist.cachefly.com and get your 10 terabytes for free forever. Yesterday, I brought our accelerator and Founder University back to in person. I went to the city of San Francisco and I was in the FIDI and I had our accelerator class at Fenwick and West over in the FIDI. And then I had the Founder University over at Wilson Sonsini's office, and 100 people showed up for that, and then 7 people in the accelerator. And the big topic of discussion was, I built this using ChatGPT or some other language model. And now 4.0 kind of includes it. And then are users going to be able to just go use ChatGPT 4 instead of using mine? And we had a really thoughtful discussion. And I said, this is exactly, Sunny, the moment that happened in app development, and you had a very famous app development company in Canada with hundreds of developers. If you built something that was of low value and easy to replicate, like a flashlight app, like a calculator app, those things were 99 cents. People bought them. There were, there was a lighter app. I mean, people had all kinds of silly apps that they built, and they were able to make, $100,000 or $250,000. But shortly thereafter, you had to make something thoughtful if you wanted, and something subscription that people could kind of work on. And so I told folks, there was one that was making a virtual travel agent. And I said, there's things that ChatGPT 4 can do, but there's this entire feature set that they're never going to get to, and customizations that you can do here. And I don't want to say them out loud here and give people a roadmap, but is that not a good analogy, or is it a flawed analogy, Sunny? The one I gave about apps in the App Store.
I like it, but I think there's one massive difference here. And again, this topic's come up a few times, which is there is an element of having access to unique data when it comes to building something in and around AI that's very important. And that was one thing that you didn't have to think about if you're building an app. And so there's like the feature angle, but you could build something that wasn't, quite the flashlight or something like that. But this whole notion that you have to have access to unique data, that's a new layer in the thinking around, how you can differentiate yourself. Because what I refer to OpenAI as is the apex aggregator. So if it's anything that can be aggregated, it will be like, the top of the food chain, right? The T-Rex, the, great white, whatever you want to call it, right? And so I think
Google index the world's information.
Sure. But but what Google always promised to and it continues to still do, and you know this really well, but you were impacted by this in Mahalo, right? Which was they promised to at least drive traffic to you. When OpenAI becomes the apex aggregator, they don't necessarily have to drive traffic to you. They can connect to your API and they can get whatever data they need or perform whatever action they need without ever having sent someone to your service. And so unless you have something that's really defensible, you're going to be at risk. And that I didn't see that in mobile. And that kind of defensibility is much harder to achieve than it was in mobile.
So let me just ask you, Sunny, what do you think about the difference? So OpenAI, yes, Apex, what do you call it? Apex aggregator or
aggregator?
Yeah. So Apex aggregator.
Apex language model.
Yeah, fine. But they're not the only one. There's a half a dozen of these out there that are actually pretty sophisticated. Maybe not at the same level, maybe not the same development team. When companies are busy building out, and Google's got one as well, which is actually pretty good, etc. Like, how agnostic do you think developers should be? So, in other words, like when you're building features, like we're building features, it's transcription, it's summaries, etc. Those features are agnostic to the model we use. So if we find that, Google makes it a better product, we can switch across to it. So like, how do you think about that?
Well, I think the ultimate pattern right now, at least that it seems like it's going to play out, is that you'll have like sort of a main, let's say LLM that you interact with. And that LLM will have a series of agents that it interacts with. Some of those may be LLMs themselves, and some of those agents just may be more traditional, just pieces of software that interact with an API. And I think the interesting thing about OpenAI right now is that they've made that jump before anyone. So they have this plugin ecosystem. They have a whole bunch of developers submitting to it. My guess is they'll have thousands when they launch, right? So it won't be like the App Store. It'll be even, App Store day one, where it's just a few apps when it came out. And I think what's quickly going to happen is we're going to see a disruption. So kind of to answer your point, Vinny, it is a little bit of a time to pick a winner and try to align to that. Now you have to have some flexibility in your approach, but if you look at where things are at today, there is a distinct difference, right? And in our group chat, we were testing a quick example of one of these open source ones. And JCal, I did the same question that you had put in one of the other ones a few weeks ago, right? Around, hey, give me a list of companies. And it's just not as good at it
not yet.
As OpenAI is.
If you love snacking like I do, you got to find the perfect snack. It's not easy. You want one that's going to remove cravings, that fit your dietary goals, regulates your blood glucose levels, and it's got to be something you look forward to eating. And you know what I love? I love macadamia nuts. What a treat. They got so many health benefits. I'll give you the highlights right here. They are the only nut that is rich in omega-7s. That's linked to natural collagen production, reducing inflammation, stabilizing your glucose levels, and healthy fat metabolism. And the folks, my friends at House of Macadamias, are obsessed with making the highest quality macadamia products available. Chocolate-dipped macadamia nuts are my favorite. But sometimes I get that coconut craving. You ever get that? They got a chocolate coconut macadamia bar that is amazing. And it hits the spot. It's not going to spike your glucose. It's something healthy, but it's a treat. It's a treat. And they just launched an amazing cold pressed macadamia oil with a buttery flavor and a high smoking point. Perfect for drizzling over meals or cooking. Use the code TWIST20 to get 20% off. And for a limited time, they're giving a free bottle of premium cold-pressed extra virgin macadamia oil with any purchase. Go to houseofmacadamias.com/twist and use the code TWIST20. houseofmacadamias.com/twist and use that code twist20 so they know JCal sent you. I do think there's an opportunity here, though, for a new business model. Back in the day, in France, they had a little communication system before the internet where you could look up restaurants, and it was called Minitel. And Minitel, if you remember, charged by the minute. And it was an information service, and CompuServe, Prodigy, and originally AOL, they charge for the minute for access to data. I think, with the lawsuits that are coming, with Reddit, Twitter, Quora, etc., Getty, Bloomberg, and others, New York Times, I'm sure will be right behind them, saying to people like ChatGPT-4, OpenAI, hey, you're going to have to pay us to use that data. A new business model emerges that will make everybody a winner, except for advertisers. So if you build, and I'll just take the travel instance, and I want to have a travel service that's built on ChatGPT-4, well, when I hit the plugins and I hit Yelp, or I hit Travel and Leisure magazine, or a blog about travel, whatever it happens to be, in order to use that data in my model, I pay them a fraction of a penny. Then that means we could invest in content, and somebody like the New York Times, somebody like Bloomberg, even a blogger, if their data was used in some way, they can, and specifically through an API call, with the plugin call, it's super easy to give attribution. This could become the new model for the internet, and it would be as if micropayments were built into the browser, right? It was just something Brave's been trying to do and crypto tried to do. And we should have had micropayments, but this could be an incrable new model. And of course, advertisers lose out a bit. Did you see
my tweet, Jay?
No, I didn't. Is it parallel thinking? Yeah.
Yeah. I literally said, I'll post the link here first, but a couple of days ago, I think it was
perhaps
week.
It's obvious, but
it's obvious.
Yeah. But we just haven't had this business model ever. Licensing was something that existed before the internet. If you wanted the AP story or an AP photo in your newspaper, you signed a licensing agreement. And that kind of went out the window. Blogs did have to pay in some cases to license photos, and the big ones would...
We have a monopolistic version of that in Apple News, right? When you pay for Apple News as part of your Apple One, you get access to a whole bunch of these things because Apple is, further paying those publications. That's like a bundle,
right? You're kind of getting an aggregator. Yeah. But what I'm saying
but you need micropayments though. That's the thing. So how is micropayments going to, it's like machines aren't going to pay with wires and bank transfers and checks. So it has to be a digital currency. Is it going to be a central bank digital currency? Is it going to be Bitcoin? Is it going to be Lightning? Is it going to be USDC? Or you have
your credit card on file. The user wouldn't be required to pay it. The service provider would.
Yeah,
so the service provider in the background would be paying micropayments.
No. It's not going to work because this is the problem. Because micropayments or with Visa, MasterCard, there's like a 30 cents charge minimum per transaction. You can't do micropayments. When machines are doing millions or hundreds of queries across different vendors for different people, it doesn't work.
No, but for a new startup to buy $500 a month in credits, like I pay now, I have my credit card on file at OpenAI to use the sandbox, and my whole team has access. And as they do stuff, it just starts billing us.
That's not what I'm saying.
I reconcile at the end of the month. But that's what I'm saying. The new startups that want to leverage this, they would be paying as they go, just like they pay for cloud storage. They would be paying for access to pools of data, and we could build an infrastructure behind the scenes where ChatGPT-4, your credit card on there that bought 1,000 credits, $1,000, they would just handle the micropayments in the background. And every month reconcile them.
So
startups, but for consumers, it would be different.
Okay. So that's assuming that when that OpenAI would have deals with all these data providers, for example.
That's what I think.
So Nick, you pull up my tweet quickly. So I put this out a week ago, and everyone's been going on about Web3 being, Web3 like being crypto. Maybe it's not crypto; it's AI. Like the next evolution of the web is actually AI and not crypto. Crypto may be a sub-segment of it, like the payments rails or whatever. But the Web3 isn't about decentralization. Web3 isn't about these things, which I guess we've created this whole notion that we think it is.
Vinny,
maybe it's just the web evolves, and now instead of using Google search, you're using ChatGPT, using AI tools.
Right. I think this is right. Most people, we've had 3 Web3 so far. The semantic web people claimed was Web3.
Yeah.
Crypto, they claimed it. And now AI is claiming it. And actually, I think some people in the VR space were kind of trying to claim Web 3.0.
Yeah.
But I think maybe third or fourth time is a charm here. Go ahead, Sunny. You had something to say.
Well, let's combine a couple of ideas here, and this kind of brings a podcast together. So I think someone both of you guys know is Grimes.
Yep.
Right.
And yesterday, Grimes put a tweet out. Maybe Nick can find it. It's quite easy. That said she is willing to split royalty 50-50 with anyone that does an AI like a remix
song,
or whatever the right term would be called. AI song.
No, like even a new track. You could create a track with her voice. You could write the lyrics. You could do the beats, whatever.
Yeah, this is the tweet. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So this is it right here. And she says, I'll split the royalties 50-50 with anyone that uses her voice. And the voice will be, through one of these AI tools, right? That allow, we've seen the Drake one and a whole bunch of these other ones now recently. So in order for this to pull off, now, Vinny, I'm going to throw it back to you, right? What is the best way for her to pull this off? Leveraging, so obviously there's an AI aspect of this, which does the voice, but, how does this all reconcile, in terms of payment and tracking and everything else? So because I think you'll have a really good answer here.
Okay. So interesting. I'm actually just messaging my friend right now, because he is a very famous DJ. And he's going to do something with this. And I don't want to say who he is yet, but he looked at this tweet and he was like, I was chatting to him yesterday, and he basically is going to take Grimes' voice and remix it into whatever, some DJ track, and then do the 50-50 royalty with her. And he's a big name DJ. He's like, maybe not tier 1, but definitely tier 2. And so I thought that would be really, really interesting. And I think that's what it needs. It needs another high profile. Like, I don't think that some guy in a basement is going to remix Grimes and create this amazing track off the. Maybe if enough people do it, it'll happen.
That's totally possible.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
Oh no! If 1,000 songs come out, 5 will be
sure.
I mean, who's produced 1,000 tracks in a year? There's going to be 1,000 Grimes tracks out next month.
Yeah.
900 are going to be terrible.
Exactly.
100 are of the 100 that are left, they're going to be good, great, or bangers.
But I'd be betting on the DJ with a big name with an existing audience to go.
And it's permissionless collaboration.
Well, exactly. So that's my point. Like an unknown artist in a basement might make a good track, but no one's going to know about it. If there's 1,000 others, they'll be drowned out by the noise.
Unless Grimes retweets it.
But maybe.
Or but she adds it to her catalog on Spotify. Like if she uploads it by DistroKid to her Spotify, then she would be managing the royalties, and it would be official. It would be on her Spotify and the, whatever they call those playlists, like this is Grimes, this is the Rolling Stones. Like she could actually feature it if she approves it, if it hits that sort of level. But you were asking Sunny the question of how should these royalties be done? She answered that. She said she wants to do contracts, smart contracts.
Well, yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying is a smart contracts for that, right? So when you create it so that no one else can rip yours off, right? I think that's where it kind of intersects back with the blockchain. And someone says, this smart contract, this token, this is the version that I created. Yeah. And here you go, right?
Okay, exactly. There it is. This is the tweet. Talking with my team, if you register music with us, we can collect and pay out royalties direct to anyone who uses AI Grimes vocals using smart contracts. The future really is now. This is so cool. Working on a way to register and easily access vocals through elf.tech. So yeah, this is brave new world. All right, you hear me raving about Notion all the time. We run our company on it, and now Notion lets you leverage really powerful artificial intelligence. My guy, Presh, works for me. He takes everything we do when we do a tactical talk at Foundry University or we have an internal meeting, and he'll take the transcript, right? We cut and paste the transcript into Notion, but then he will highlight it, and then he uses the magic of Notion to create bullet points and a summary. And this is incredible. What would have taken him an hour or two of work to summarize a meeting, it's done in seconds. I mean, you're starting on third base. Right now, great news for all of you. Notion is offering eligible startups up to 6 months free of their Plus plan, plus unlimited AI for 6 months. Notion's going to help you start up. You're going to save money because you can consolidate many of the different tools you're using. It's going to make you super efficient. All the info is in one place. Notion is becoming more powerful by the day, and you need to get in on the action. Notion is now offering eligible startups up to 6 months free for their Plus plan. Plus, again, unlimited AI for 6 months. through the Notion for Startups program. You start saving your startup some money and apply for Notion for Startups today at notion.com/Jason. When you use our link, you're supporting the show. Start saving your startup some money. Apply for notion.com/Jason. At the same time, our bestie, Chamath, wrote a blog post. And in his blog post, it's basically a rehash of what he said on the All In podcast. Nothing actually new here. But he basically says, these are the main arguments against regulating AI and why he disagreed with them. It's premature to regulate something that barely exists. And he writes, mark these down as famous last words. While it's admittedly early in the life of AI and generative pre-trained transformers, progress is compounding at a rate that's measured in days. Let's take that first one. Do you agree? Where do you stand on this? Chamath's positions or the premature?
Yeah, I'd love to hear
regulation
Sunny
or free markets right now. You got to pick one.
I'm for free markets. Free markets.
Vinny?
I'm the same. I think it's premature to try to regulate this right now because all you're going to do is you're going to stifle the range of potential end results that we could have. It's better to run all the experiments, see what works, see what doesn't work, regulate the stuff that doesn't work, than to put regulation in and prevent the good stuff from ever coming in the first place. Because some of the good stuff may be really good for society. That's my take.
And if I can just add to what Vinny just said, some of the comments are interesting, but AI in different forms have been around for a very long time, used by a number of companies, whether it's drug companies to create, compounds, right? DeepMind years ago, solved one of those protein folding problems, and there wasn't a problem. I think the issue that we have today, and where I struggle with in terms of Vinny's point there, is what is the scope of it? Are we now saying this applies to machine learning, right? Are we say, because that's been around for a long time. Does it apply only to generative AI? Does it only apply to a generative AI that comes out of things that leverage transformer technology? Where do you bound it?
Right. There's a definition that, what is self-driving as but one example. Is self-driving adaptive cruise control, lane guidance, or full self-driving? They're having that discussion there as well. And, my position on full self-driving is, if it's a beta and you agree that you have to be paying attention and they have a camera on the inside that's watching your eyes and it shakes, like on my full self-driving beta, I am now at 4 strikes out of 5. Yeah. And I am super vigilant. And I got all 4 strikes for the same reason, which is looking down at not my phone, but my navigation. And I didn't realize how sensitive it is. Oh no, actually a couple times it was also because of the steering wheel. So there is self-regulation that needs to occur. I think self-regulation is the way to go here. So I'm going to...
Well, let's just add to that, Jerry. I think when you say self-regulation, it doesn't mean that the industry regulates itself necessarily. It also means regulation by enforcement too. So what I mean by that is I'm actually very interested to see what happens when all these artists and people who provide data to these AI tools go and sue and go and run lawsuits and run it through the legal process.
Which is fine.
That's how we got DMCA. That's how we got a lot of the sort of foundational laws for the internet was based upon litigation. So let's test our assertions of freedom. Let's test our assertion of creativity and IP and ownership, etc. And let's see where the courts lie, because it's pretty pointless.
I have a counter to that.
Okay, go ahead.
I understand your position, which is there are existing laws. You're taking our existing laws position. Yeah. People break the law, it's on them. And that is completely true. So if a new type of gun comes out and it shoots 100 bullets a minute, instead of 1 bullet, if it shoots 100 bullets a second versus 1, we were like, hey, well, the person did the murdering. But then we did say, you know what? We're going to have some limits on magazine size in certain states. We're going to have waiting periods in certain states. We actually did look at some of the nuance, and machine guns, automatics, were not allowed, right? And so when we look at AI, I would encourage people to think, well, what is the equivalent of the automatic weapon versus a weapon that is, you have to pull each time in order, a semi-automatic.
Standard rifle or just a rifle.
A standard rifle, et cetera, and the magazine size. So, that is one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is the MPAA. Hey, people are taking their families to the movies. What's a way for us to let people know, hey, somebody's going to be murdered in this way, in a comic book way, or in a horror sense where they're literally going to be decapitated and it's going to be blood everywhere. one's going to cause nightmares, and one is going to be a comic book killing where somebody turns into a pile of dust and you don't see anything, right? These were common sense things. Some of them became laws. Other ones were done by the industry. I think the people who are providing these services will need to start thinking about people being registered to use these services and audits being done on what they're doing. Now, audits are being done right now on what you do on AWS. If you want to steal movies and put it on an AWS cloud, you will get caught, right? They're fingerprinting stuff. There's a fingerprinting system for child porn on AWS, right? I don't know what that's called, but Google has it, and they've sort of looked for horrible things. I think here, the AI companies should start thinking sooner rather than later about the auto GPTs, because I could see a scenario where somebody sets an auto GPT up, and I brought this example up on All In, where it would start hacking people in a very personalized way. So instead of just asking people to log into Gmail, it could be, let me find your friend graph, let me write personal notes based on tweets that you shared with somebody, and automate a million phishing attacks, as but one example. How do we have the platforms think about that, Sunny, and self-regulation? You heard Vinny's let the laws handle it. You heard me give some examples of self-regulation. Where would you land after hearing those two descriptions?
Well, I again just put my technologist hat back on and I go, look, anytime these things happen, you have to fight the technology with more technology. Mm-hmm. So I think for every AI that will, potentially exist to do something that's harmful, there'll be AIs that are there to protect you. And we have those now, right? Those are the things that run in our spam filters and on our phone. I don't know if, Apple has something that runs on your phone, even without your permission, for child pornography.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Yep. That they report if, you take those pictures and they end up in your photos.
Which I think they were, the scanning of people's personal clouds, they stopped doing. That people felt that was too intrusive, but if they put it in the cloud, maybe they did. I'm not sure where they wound up.
They do it on device.
Yeah.
But coming back to that, Jacob, that's technology that is using AI to, combat bad things that people are doing. And so I just come back to, there'll be a set of companies that are out there combating the auto GPTs that are trying to hack people and write fake reviews to sites. And so I think it's just going to be even a larger technology battle on both sides, which we've seen. So for every spam originator there's multiple companies that fight spam. There's multiple companies that provide firewalls, right? Like you probably even had them as sponsors at some point, Jay Cal, right? They're like very standard in airports and stuff like that. And so here's sort of just the way the technology cycle works.
Let's talk about another argument that Chamath heard and that he rebuts in his blog post. Government doesn't have the credibility or track record to effectively regulate technology. He says, experience suggests the contrary. In a well-regulated industry like drugs and pharmaceuticals, for example, the Food and Drug Administration, they maintain a tight hold over what can be sold in order to ensure safety of customers. So do we believe the government analogy here for the FDA is analogous to 100 million people using ChatGPT? I think there's a scale issue here. What do you think, Vinny?
Yeah,
No, go ahead, Sonny.
No, I was going to say, I think it's a scale issue. I think the government can properly regulate anything they want to. It's just a matter of, can they keep up with the pace of the innovation?
Yeah, I think here's the problem, Jacob. We're at the bottom of a very, very steep slope that's approaching for the amount of change and disruption and whatever else that's going to happen in AI. And when regulators start trying to do stuff now, or like the government starts looking at it now, by the time they like take stock of what it is today and try and process it and figure it out and create a law, the shit's changed so much in the next 6 months, 12 months, they have to start from scratch again. So, that's another good argument from my side why I think it's just government just needs to sit back. I don't think they can do much. The other thing is we're also hitting computational constraints. I mean, all the big cloud providers are hitting the wall with GPUs, running the models, the training models, etc.
That's an extraordinary point you're making, Vinny. When's the last time we saw technical constraints in our industry? It was dial-up speeds.
Yes. And storage costs. And storage costs was a big
storage
problem.
costs, right? So those were the last two massive hurdles. And then before that, obviously, there were some CPU, GPU issues of running a movie on your laptop, right? So we had CPU, GPU issues in the 80s and 90s. We had bandwidth issues in the 90s. Those went away in 2000. We had storage issues up until Dropbox, which would be 2005, 2010. We saw storage.
8 to 10, yeah.
Yeah, YouTube, YouTube and Dropbox were companies that were built off of
it was
storage becoming free or close to cheap.
So,
very cheap.
For me, it was the speed of connection. Then it was the cost. You remember, like, it was very expensive and slow in the beginning. And then the storage, like just streaming, watching YouTube, etc. Even like Netflix, they were spending so much money on at one point they were losing money back in the days on the cost of just streaming. Right now, now it costs nothing to stream. Like you can download. I download 80 gigs for a Modern Warfare.
So here we are again.
No problem.
Here we are again with a constraint. If we were to look at a big constraint, which is these NVIDIA, what do they call them? G100s or something?
Well, no, not just G100s, like
A100s.
A100s, yeah. It's not just
A100. Sorry,
it's not just those chips. It's any. Like we have a shortage of GPU compute power across generative AI. In AI, there are lots of different chips. My point is, like, not just AI chips. We just have a GPU shortage that's emerging worldwide. If something has to happen to TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductors, okay? If China and America go to war over Taiwan or whatever, if any of that stuff happens in the next 12 to 18 to 24 months, we're going to be screwed. We don't have enough compute power.
We're not going to be able to make pictures of David Sachs as Batman.
Yeah. I'll give you the other side of that, though.
Okay, here we go.
I started my career in semiconductors, and so the cycle in semiconductors is only 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So at any given point, to get to the latest and greatest technology, it's only ever 2 years away.
Well, you have to have a fab up, right? You can't not have a fab.
Yeah, but those things have existed in the U.S. for a long time, and they can fire those back up, right? And so to get to fab capacity of the latest technology, it's always just 2 years away. And the companies that provide all the technology underneath to make that happen are all, mostly American companies as well, like Applied Materials and whatnot, right? And so I think you can't fight it right away, but given that this rhetoric's been happening for the last year to 6 months, I think we're only, 6 to 12 months away from having start of capacity ourselves.
Well, Amazon, I think I saw, was actually building their own competitive chip to the A100.
And Elon at Tesla is building his own, platform as well. So, when you have constraint, it leads to even more innovation and more players going after this. I've never seen, you want to talk about things moving quickly. I mean, when did we ever see the government push through a regulation and a spending bill at the scale of the CHIPS Act? They are in full-scale panic mode over the possibility that we could have chips be constrained because of this Taiwan situation. And one wonders if the pace of AI combined with the availability of chips is actually pushing this issue onto a different timeline. We're seeing a geopolitical, and just letting this sink in for a second, we're seeing in geopolitics the possibility that a war over a constrained chipset for AI could be the next world war. I mean, I don't want to sound like hysterical.
It's very possible, Jekyll. In fact, I would actually say that it's more likely than not, because what's going to happen in the next... So it goes back to my revenue destruction transference argument. The moment we start seeing revenue moving to startups from traditional companies, and then these companies, which are at scale, have to implement AI and need the GPU compute power, and they don't have it. Like, this is where the choke point comes in, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, the people using AI, by and large, and telling you, I don't know, you're more on the ground in San Francisco these days than I am. Like, it's a cottage industry of startups and small enterprises. It's not the big guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's everywhere. Like, it's everywhere, I'll find it, sure. Like, Morgan Stanley just put a little presentation out earlier today. I'll find it and send it in the chat in a second. It's all over the place. I think.
But are they deploying it at scale? My point is, are they deploying it? Like, inference, for example, with these models, like are they running it at a high enough capacity or utilization that it's going to cause a strain on the GPU infrastructure that they've got? I don't think so. I don't think it's there yet.
Oh, I mean,
I think
we saw it with Azure. I mean, they're limiting ChatGPT-4 searches if you have a paid account to 30 every couple of hours.
25.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they're throttling it, there's a reason. And I think the reason is these systems are being pushed to the brink because of so much innovation, but we'll catch up. I mean, this is not the
Jason,
first
what
time.
What I'm saying is like the corporate America hasn't fully adopted AI yet. We're talking about
that's the crazy part. Yes.
Maybe 1%, maybe if that. The rest are all sitting on the sidelines, and the moment they need to, where's the compute power going to come from? We don't have enough GPUs out there.
I told everybody in all my companies, or the 2 companies I'm running, to get on ChatGPT-4 to expense the $20 a month. And I invited everybody to get on the play around at my investment company. I gave every one of them access to my, credit card account back thing. And I said, I want everybody to do every job you have, start with a ChatGPT-4 search, and then go and back and do your job, and then report back with screenshots. And I'm deadly serious about it. If anybody on my teams, because they listen to the pod, if you're not using ChatGPT-4 every day and testing it on everything you do, you're not going to last at a company I work for. Period. Full stop. That would be like showing up to work without a computer. You show up to work for me without a ChatGPT-4 window open, you don't work for me, because that's how much I believe this is going to transform stuff. And as but one example, we're raising this 4th launch fund, and I was like, I wonder if there's LP and institutions I don't know, and we're having this angel summit. I was like, let me invite 20 LPs to come to the summit to balance out all the VCs who are there, and they like to meet VCs, and VCs, of course, like to meet LPs. So I start pulling up lists, and I start doing a ChatGPT. I put it in a table, and then I open up my window over at my sandbox, and I say, hey, for this foundation I've never heard of, can you give me the Twitter URL and the LinkedIn URL of anybody who has the word partner, in their thing? And it, of course, knows LinkedIn, I guess, because Microsoft and ChatGPT and OpenAI are so connected and they own LinkedIn. And then I got the table. I was like, this is a research project that I would have spent thousands of dollars and weeks on, and it's done instantly. Now, I don't have Auto GPT, and I'm not a developer yet. And one of the guys from OpenAI told me they'll put my account on the plugins, but I'm going to plug this in to my Gmail or Zapier or something, and I'm just going to send a ChatGPT message that says, "Dear blank, this is my AI. It's Jason Calacanis. This is my AI coming from my real address. I asked my AI to tell me people who might be interested in coming to the Angel Summit. I see you're connected to these other speakers who are already coming here. If you're interested in coming, let me know. And if you hit reply, you'll actually get the real Jason. This is Jason AI." How hard is that last piece to do, Sunny? Because I'm not a developer.
You know what, JCal, we should just do as an experiment. We can sit down for 3 hours and do it. And 3 hours would be a stretch, right? It's all doable right now.
All right, I'll come to your office on Saturday. I'll buy you lunch. It'd be cool to hang out. I mean, I was just thinking, I want to be a developer again. That's how inspired I was by this. I was like, if I do this, that's literally a full-time job at my company. I don't have to hire. Because I was thinking of hiring somebody to do relations. I don't need somebody to do relations if I've got this AI out there doing this for me.
It's 10x JCal. That's what you get.
It's a 10x JCal networking.
Yeah, again, like this is why I think the benefit's going to accrue to the startup world at a much higher rate than big companies. Because if we have I think 8 or 10 engineers. If I can 10x that, I've got a 100-person effective team, right? But
precisely.
But a company with 10,000 engineers, what do you do with 100,000 engineers? You can't do this. You know what I'm saying?
You start laying 10,000 people off.
Exactly.
Is what you start doing, which is why Zuckerberg just did. Did he do a third riff? Did I read that correctly? He did 10, 10, and then another 4.
4. Yeah.
Wow. 24,000 and a hiring freeze. He's getting fit. And people this is the thing about the sky is falling. People saying, we're saying, as technologists, the sky is falling and that we're overreacting. When people say we're overreacting, and I explained to you the story of running a venture firm and that I was going to hire a human being to meet with LPs for me, potential LPs, and invite them to events and try to build relationships with them. And I, in an afternoon, as a non-developer, figured out, hey, I can get halfway there, and Sunny as a developer or any other developer hired could get me the other 3 hours there, and I 10x'd myself. I don't need to hire that person. Anybody hearing my voice and hearing that example should be thinking about their own job and how much code it would take to rewrite and automate their job.
I mean, just speaking of code rewrites, you realize you can give an entire code base to OpenAI and say, rewrite it in a different language, or rewrite this, or clean up the code and write it better, remove all the bugs, like scan for vulnerabilities. Like, this is what makes a 10x developer. Like, you can just basically, with very little coding knowledge and experience, as a junior developer, you can do the stuff that senior developers do, because this thing is doing it all for you. It's quite amazing. How many times, microservice architecture has changed the way we do development over the years. But 20 years ago, migrating from one stack to another it would take months to rewrite the code. You could, now it's just, okay, we open up an API and the systems talk to each other. But remember those days, Sunny? It was insane. Like, using J2, Java, J2ME, and whatever stack you were using. It was a joke.
Have you guys used ShareGPT, where you can kind of share your thread?
Share your prompts. Yeah.
You share your prompts and the whole thing. I find that super fascinating. And so I basically shared it on Twitter, and I asked people like what they would change. And I had so many different developers contact me like, yeah, I could take this to the next level for you. And I'm like, wow, this is super powerful. Sunny, you also shared with me in the group chat a link to an open source ChatGPT competitor. You referenced it earlier. What's the name of it? And how close is it to, why should we care? How close is it to ChatGPT 3.5 or 4?
Yeah. I'm not in a position to kind of benchmark it, because it literally just released a few hours ago. So Hugging Face is actually like a platform where they collect lots of different machine learning models, and kind of beyond just AI and the way we've been thinking about it the last few months. And so they've launched something, I believe it's called like Hugging Face GPT or something, like a chat. Let me pull up the exact name. And why this is important, it goes back to some of the origins around what people have been talking about with respect to safety and transparency. So it's an open source model. Everything is open. And so we can see how it's been trained. We can see how it operates. We can see the code for it. And, goes back to your friend Elon and why he named OpenAI OpenAI. It was meant to be open for the safety and benefit of humans, right? And I had shared a tweet a few minutes ago with Nick, if you want to pull up that one, where it kind of intersects this part of the conversation, a previous one, where he goes on about like people just don't understand sort of the power of, and this is where I kind of a little bit of a different view from Vinny, is that the AIs are already powerful because folks like Elon, who've been thinking about this a lot longer than any of us, are already saying it. And so, and he's like, right on, like I've seen a few technologies develop, but none with this level of risk. And, smart humans have trouble imagining something that's vastly smarter than themselves. And I think he's gotten to the point, and maybe, J-Cal, you can comment here, where he believes that these things are already smarter than us.
I was having these conversations with him 15 years ago when Superintelligence, that book came out, and Sam Harris, myself, and Elon were talking about it over dinner. And Sam Harris was new to AI, but Elon was absolutely convinced, because what people don't know is Elon was on the board of and a major investor in DeepMind. He begged the DeepMind company to not sell to Google, to remain independent. He offered them the funding, and then he wound up giving Sam Altman the funding to try to make this open source version, to try to get the world to see what was happening and make it open source. And of course, Sam decided to pull the old switcheroo and took what was the mission to be nonprofit and open to for-profit and closed. That is a story that remains a mystery, I think, to the world as to what happened there. I have my concerns, if I'm being totally honest, that OpenAI is not sharing the source code. That to me is very much a tell. They said this technology is too dangerous to not have it be open source. Then they said it's too dangerous to make it open source. What does that mean? What does that even mean? Does that mean they have discovered something that is really, truly scary? or they want to maintain a lead and make a huge profit off of it. You could take the cynical Sam and the team just want to make a ton of money, or you could take the virtuous and believe them. Hey, it's too dangerous for people to have. What do you guys think? I am struggling with this, and I know Sam. I mean, we're not besties, but I know Sam relatively well. What's the actual motivation here? Is it capitalism, or is it that they know something that we all don't, and they are scared to share it? The source code. What do you think? Occam's razor?
I would side with Occam's razor is like the most obvious answer. And the most obvious answer in this case is maybe Musk's razor, which is, it's what he's saying, is that it's too dangerous. And that's why. I would, for someone that, like you said, has been around it a long time, really devotes his life to, expanding humanity through lots of different ventures. This is one of the more important ones because there will be no reason to be an interplanetary species if some form of AGI ensures that we are no longer a species before we can get to the interplanetary stuff. So I would just side with him. I'd go with the most obvious answer, which is side with him. He's been looking at it and thinking about it a long time. That's my view.
I mean, I'll have a slightly different take, Jekyll. I think that
okay, let me hear it.
Occam's razor would basically, for me, it would point to the fact that there's possibly, ideological decisions that are made that they don't want to be public. So, it's the majority of the team decides that, we don't want people to know that we're doing this or that. And that's the simplest explanation is that they don't want you to see what's doing. I don't think it's necessarily, oh my gosh, we've created a monster. I think it's just like, we just don't want anyone to see the way we make decisions. And
therefore they can make more money or have a more defensible operation.
For whatever the reason is, it's just like, we just don't want, whether it's capitalistic.
I wish they would tell us. I think this is where Sam needs to be a little bit more honest with everybody because he's been on this press tour anyway. So just tell us, what is the story between the nonprofit, for-profit flip? Maybe he's concerned about liability because I think
going back to the Chamath's letter, like we could all, this is where the government could step in. Like they could have a hearing and it could be open or closed and they can ask.
Yeah. I think this is so acute in terms of job disruption. I don't want to say destruction, but job disruption or competitiveness and AI and chat GP OpenAI's lead that the government asking a couple of questions. If OpenAI is not going to be transparent about it, I think is not a bad idea. And I'm not saying that because I'm kind of trying to cause trouble for them, but it's just too weird that they were open source and now they're closed.
No, it's again.
And they were nonprofit and they're for profit. It's just, I've never seen that in the history of our industry.
Let's just assume, for argument's sake, this was started in Florida and it was a Trump organization and they were closed source. And what would you assume if it was that?
For profit. I think Trump only cares about profits. Yeah.
Do you think that, let's say it was Fox News as well. Let's say Fox News started an AI company.
Honestly, I think Fox News is, the reason Fox News picks a side is because they realize that you're going to get more ratings. It's better to appeal to one side and get ratings. Knowing what I know about media, having spent my career in it, I know the exact cynicism of Fox News because they're liberal when it comes to the movies and TV shows they're making. And then when it comes to news, they are incredibly conservative because that was a great mode.
Well, that's my point.
To make money.
It's conservative versus liberal. So do you think the majority of people who work at OpenAI are liberals or conservatives?
Well, obviously liberals, but I think a bunch of them are libertarians too.
But so in that
they're
vein,
capitalists.
Well, in that vein, the question, I guess, is: is there a liberal, agenda?
No, I don't think this has to do with politics. I think there's a profit motive here. Maybe it's either a profit motive or there's something in the code, to your point, that is either concerning or worth protecting. Got to be one of those two things. But anyway, we're going to find out. I just wanted to show this example. Here's the share GPT I did. It's got 3,300 views. I shared it on my Twitter as well as internally. But if you take a look at the share GPT I did, you can pull it up, boys, producer Nick, and you'll see it basically gave me the LinkedIn's, and you can see, I'm playing with it. I'm asking it to add more. If you scroll down, you'll see me putting stuff in a table and then asking it for more and more endowments and doing the LinkedIn. But then when I went to the sandbox and I started playing with that, so here's the playground image. Stuff is getting, this is when I think about, like a research position or what people's entry-level jobs are. If senior level people can do this, and I just said, please give me the URLs of everyone with the word partner in their title at the Ford Foundation. That's a big endowment. Please provide URL for the LinkedIn page, profile page on their website and the Twitter profile, put that in a table. And sure enough, like, here's a couple of people who work there, and I got everything I need. This research that I'm demonstrating here is weeks of research. And I haven't glued this together to put it into a database or make automated emails yet, or DM them, or mention them. I mean, there is so much more I can do here if I just knew how to write a little bit of code.
You don't even have to write code.
I want a code coach to teach me how to write code. What is it? Replit? Would I do this in Replit? Is that the company or the platform I would use?
To be honest, sure. Yes, you can. And it's wonderful. But like, once you get plugins enabled, you can just do this all within the
plugin architecture,
the kind of ChatGPT interface. Because it can write code now, and it can run it for you right there.
Yeah, a senior level person at OpenAI has told me they would send it to me, so I gotta I don't know, maybe I gotta log out and log back in and see if I have plugins. Thank you to my friends for moving me up the list. I have plugins. Okay, well, I know what my afternoon's going to be like. If you work at my companies and you're not using this every day, you might not be working for me for much longer, because you got to level up everybody. I'm looking at this, and I got to say, having come from the editorial background at inside.com, I'm trying to find a developer, because I did summaries of newsletter stories that we do. Like, we kind of do bullet pointed news kind of summaries. And I would say the ChatGPT 4 ones were not great, but they were within 70%. And then I was like, well, compounding, that means it's going to be 110% this year. And so that doesn't mean I don't think we need the writers. What I want the writers to do is do a level of curation and insight on top of what ChatGPT does. And so it's got me inspired to think about so many different ways to, take the newsletter business, take the investment business, and just level it up.
What's so crazy, J-Cal? Think about this, right? Mahalo.
Yep. Human-powered search.
But all of you and ChatGPT could recreate all of Mahalo.
It's crazy. I had 100 people working there.
That's what I'm
a year in revenue.
Right? You and just sitting in front of a prompt could recreate an entire company from not that long ago.
Yep. It's bonkers. And, when I talked to Sergey about Mahalo and, like this tiny competition we might be at some point for Google, he said he really liked what we were doing. And Marissa also liked it. And so did Megan Smith. They just thought eventually this would be done by AI. And I guess they were right. Eventually it would be. And here we are 15 years later. 15 years.
What were the top 5 Mahalo pages?
It turned out that it's a great question. It was very weird. We had started to do some how-to content. So we were trying everything. We did coupon pages. Those were the highest monetizing. So we had said like Bed Bath & Beyond coupon, right? And then we gave strategies for getting the coupons, pages that had them, how to get them, and then just, some links and some content. Then we did pages on how to cook salmon. And at one point, how to cook salmon, we were the number 1 result in Google. It turned out a lot of people are typing that into Google, and but it didn't monetize. Then I started making videos because people just wanted the answer of how to cook salmon. And so we just started adding more answers to the page. And, it was a very good lesson for me, because we built a Q&A system. We had built a wiki system before, after Wikipedia, but before Quora. Mm-hmm. And, the real issue was the business model. We were dependent on Google for search traffic. And then when Google saw that we were answering people's questions, they cut our throats. And, I think that's the antitrust stuff that, a lot of us had to deal with. eHow, all the different how-to sites, Wonder, whatever. What was the site? About.com that the New York Times owned.
Yep.
We all basically got cut off at the knees because Google saw us as a threat. And Matt Cutts lied to my face. we don't have partners. And then I had the other side of the business saying we are partners because we're making $10 million in Google AdSense together. When you start making $10, $20, $30,000 a day in Google AdSense, you can be sure you got a pretty good partnership going. And people were having me over to hang out at Google. And then Matt Cutts wouldn't talk to me. And so I emailed Sergey and I talked to Sergey and I talked to Marissa and I talked to Megan Smith. And they're like, I wish we could help you, but the algorithm people, they don't allow anybody to talk to them. I'm like, you don't allow anybody to talk to them. And they basically wouldn't give you an answer. So, hey, it's a good lesson for everybody. You can't have a dependency on any one company, whether it's Google or Stripe or, look at BuzzFeed and Facebook.
Yeah.
BuzzFeed is like, I don't even know if that company is going to be here next year. Like they're making $200-300 million. I think the company's worth $100 million now. They just laid off the entire news team.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't they just shut down or what?
They shut down BuzzFeed News, but they still have like the listicle stuff, I think, still works. Okay. But they were an SEO. They weren't SEO driven. They were social driven. So, you want to share this on Facebook, and they would siphon traffic off for Facebook until Facebook was like, you know what? This content should live on Facebook, not your website. So just do not be dependent on anybody. And I think why I think this is so inspiring for founders is that you're going to be able, my belief, I think we'll end on this one, is we're going to see 100 times the number of startups.
Yep.
That's what I think is going to happen. I think this is exactly like when Y Combinator and cloud computing, AngelList, OpenAngel Forum, My Syndicate, that moment in time, many more people could build something because you only needed 5 people and $1 million to build something because of cloud computing. And then it became, well, you only needed like 5 people and 150,000. I think now you need 2 people and, $25,000.
Yeah.
Or $250,000, which means like a very niche website or a very niche service. An app for snowboarders, right? We use the app Slopes, right? I think it's probably a couple of person team.
Yep.
Well, there could be a version just for snowboarders, but nobody's taking the time to build that because it's only going to make $5 million in revenue. But if one person can build it and do customer support and everything, that's like a pretty cool business. And maybe 10 people can make 10 apps instead of 10 people making one app. So I think that we're going to see like a long tail of startups and incredible software products because of this. I think this is going to create a revolution in startups.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's
already happening. It's already happening. Yeah. The one thing that needs to flow is the revenues, right? So I keep harping on that because otherwise it's just this is an expensive business. I mean, the cost of running these models, the GPU costs of running this stuff, even the OpenAI costs, it's not cheap. If startups is producing stuff that just moves, bits and bytes from one place to another, and there's no money on the other end of it, it could be disruptive. But we have to figure out the revenue models first.
All right, listen, you guys are amazing. Look forward to doing some coding with you, Sunny, over the weekend. Vinny, whatever music festival you're at next, I hope you enjoy that and you pop some great bottles while Sunny and I are actually getting work done.
Well, Sunny and I are going to be popping some bottles tomorrow night.
Oh, what? What? Is there bottle popping? You guys are going out? What, a little Vegas trip? Or are you going out to see the Warriors in Sacramento? What's going on?
We're Austin.
We're in Austin.
Oh, thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite, boys.
You're welcome.
I guess I missed. I guess the invite got missed. I don't need an invite. I need you to send a plane.
I missed mine to the launch.
Well, that wasn't my invite to give. I'm lucky to have been invited and to the SpaceX team.
Did you see the damage though?
We were supposed to actually. It's interesting you mentioned that we were supposed to go tour it, but we ran out of time and I had to get out of there. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you build the largest rocket in the world, it's going to leave a crater, a mark. It's going to leave a mark. But they have my understanding from I think what's been publicly said. I always got to be careful here. Is that there's a solution for that that they have?
Yeah.
And
I think he's done a pretty good job of highlighting, like, hey, we were supposed to have this water cooled thing, but we didn't think we needed it, but now we'll put it in. It's pretty cool. It was really inspiring, Jake Hell. That was awesome to see. So.
I've lived a lot of life. I have, been to the NBA finals. I have skied in Japan. I've done it all. I think in terms of, I've done a lot in terms of human existence. It was, aside from the birth of my 3 daughters, it was the most intense experience of my life.
Wow.
So 2 births, 3 kids. We had twins. And then the launch of Starship would be the most intense, electrifying experiences of my life.
That's awesome.
Pretty. I mean, what we saw, I think it was kind of like watching the course of humanity change. The scale of this rocket is, I've been to Starbase a number of times, and I've been on the top of, there's a building where they build just the top part of the rocket, the Starship.
The actual Starship.
Not the booster.
Yep.
I have been up the freight elevator to the top of just the Starship. And I don't know how many stories that is, 30 or something. 40. And you're looking down at this rocket ship, or looking up at it, and it's like, whoa, the Starship is a very large vehicle. And I have been inside the Starship, like the cone of it, maybe the top third of it. I've been inside where the payload is.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, the payload area, it feels like the size of a warehouse. It's not possible to comprehend how large this thing is until you see a human or you've stood next to it.
Yeah.
It does not feel like something that could, it feels as if the Empire State Building is going to space. That's the closest analogy I can give you. If you stand at the bottom of a skyscraper,
at the bottom, and you just,
and you look up and you're like, imagine that flying through the air for 4 minutes at whatever speed it was going at. That's what just happened. The Empire State Building, or something in that range,
incredible,
going to space. It was
awesome to watch.
And you know what?
Awesome to watch.
He's been pretty clear. Like, that's an old rocket. They got, the next couple ready to go.
Yeah.
So again, talk about compounding. He's compounding physics down there.
Yeah.
Let alone compounding AI. It's going to be pretty fantastic if he can stay focused on that, and really that team is dialed in. They are dialed in. It was very impressive. You underestimate what you can do in the short term.
They have to be the smartest engineers in the world to do what they're doing, literally.
It's not just their intelligence, it's their motivation. It is
incredible.
When you go to Starbase, that is a citadel of technological achievement. It is like going to the Vatican or to a monastery. It is not like anything you've experienced in your life. They are there to colonize Mars. So the vibes you get are crazy. Here's a scale against a human. And just to give people an idea, if you're watching, we see the human. Yeah, there's a tiny little human there, and that's just, and here we go.
What does it cost to build this thing?
It's actually not crazy expensive.
I don't want to say, but I think they're going to, like the Tesla Model Y, it's getting cheaper and cheaper, and it's reusable is the idea. Yeah. So those arms are going to grip it when it comes back down. So they didn't even attempt that, but just like they figured out, maybe, I don't know if it was 20 or 30 times into the Falcon, how to land them and how to land all the boosters and everything.
Yeah. Wow.
They're going to be able to reuse these. And if they can reuse these, and they could have these going up daily, like they do with the Falcon. How often do you see Falcon launches? There's been 224 of them, I think.
Almost like every day now, right? They do them.
Well, I don't know if it's quite every day, but I think there's been weeks when there's been multiple. Yeah. So it's moving, I think, towards that pace. And that means payloads in space are going to be absurdly cheap.
Yeah. I think I read something, Vinny, and ultimately they'll get it down to like $20 million or something.
What? That's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's already changed everything.
It's cheaper than a house in Atherton, guys.
Yeah, and you know what? If you're inside that tip where the payload is, it's the same size. It's pretty much the same size of these outrageous homes in Atherton. All right, great job, Sunny. Great job, Vinny. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks.
On This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.